So this might be the best news that we've heard about Doctor Doom in the MCU yet. Now, we've heard from several different insiders that the Fantastic Four film, of course, is going to set up the Fantastic Four in another universe, but it's also going to be setting up Doctor Doom, basically stating that if the Fantastic Four get taken from their universe or they try to escape their universe because it is dying for whatever reasons due to incursions or Galactus about to devour their world, when they leave their universe, Doctor Doom is reportedly going to go with them, or at the very least find his own way to get out of that dying universe, bringing him into our main timeline and bringing him into the Multiverse Saga story and the Avengers Secret War story. And yes, they are setting him up to be a villain, however, he is not apparently going to be the big bad for Avengers Secret Wars, and this is really great news because Doctor Doom hasn't had enough time to really have been set up as a main villain. I mean, as of right now, Kang has only had a little bit of the spotlight. He was, of course, supposed to get more spotlight in Avengers Kang Dynasty. However, what is happening there is still a little bit unclear, but today we do have a new report about Doctor Doom and Kang in the MCU. These reports are coming from Alex P over at thecosmiccircus.com, and he did another Q&A recently where he talked about the future of Kang and the future of Doctor Doom. And I gotta say, if this ends up happening, I think this is probably the best way to go about Doctor Doom in the MCU as far as what Marvel Studios' plans are for him. I think it's great, and we'll get into it, but basically he's not going to be the main villain of Secret Wars. It sounds like that is still indeed going to be Kang the Conqueror, and Marvel Studios, even though they might not talk about Kang for a while, they're going to circle back to him. Now, at this point in time, it's not impossible to completely get rid of Kang the Conqueror out of the MCU. It's the Multiverse Saga. You could bring in another villain, you could set him up in a pretty big way, and ultimately have him be the main villain. But I think it's kind of a slap in the face to the fans. They've already set up Kang in a pretty big way, especially with that Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania post-credit scene. It really is unfortunate with everything that happened with Jonathan Majors, but based off of everything that we've heard from multiple different insiders, Marvel Studios is still planning on using Kang as their main big bad villain of the MCU. They are simply, and I'm sorry to say this for those still hoping, going to recast him. But that's expected. They, after all, did fire him, and they're in pretty deep right now with what they've set up with Loki Season 1, Season 2, Ant-Man Quantumania, and I wouldn't want to see him go away, and most fans don't either. And according to Alex P, he's not going away, at least not permanently. However, we are apparently going to be seeing other villains. In his Discord Q&A, somebody asked, "What's the word on Avengers 5? Are they going to keep Kang or change him with another big bad?" In which Alex replied, "I have heard they want to focus on other multiversal villains before dealing with Kang again. So we might not see Kang for a little bit, but he is going to come back. And again, I think it would be kind of a slap in the face if they didn't bring Kang back." Now, what we've been hearing from multiple other insiders about Avengers 5 specifically is that they are indeed going to have two villains of this film, but we've heard that one is going to be Kang. So what exactly does this report mean, stating that they're going to come back to Kang and focus on other villains in the meantime? Well, it could mean two different things, and it could mean one of these two things, or it could actually mean both of these two things. One is that all of the villains leading up to the next Avengers film will focus on other villains, not Kang the Conqueror, but some other villains that are very specific to specific movies and not necessarily connected to the Multiverse Saga overall. Kang is, of course, connected to everything that is supposed to be happening right now, but another villain could specifically be related to a specific movie. An example of this could be Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. They could say that the Ten Rings were actually created by another multiversal villain, not Kang the Conqueror, and Shang-Chi could take on that villain in Shang-Chi 2. They could then defeat that villain and then move on to the Avengers film, the next Avengers movie, depending on when Shang-Chi 2 comes out. But then later on, they could actually discover that the Bengals were indeed Kang Tech. The other multiversal villain just kind of took them from him. So the first villain is kind of a one and done villain just for Shang-Chi 2, just to be that main villain, but then we go back on to connecting everything to Kang. So that's one option. Each movie could kind of get their individual villain, which is kind of basically what we've done in the MCU so far. I mean, even Thanos didn't really pop up as the main villain until Avengers Infinity War. But the other option could be it's simply all set up in Avengers 5. We do have a villain in Avengers Avengers 5, but the main villain could be Kang the Conqueror. And then at the end of the film, that's where they really just blow the multiverse open. And whatever happens between Avengers 5 and Avengers Secret Wars, all those movies in between, they will focus on the multiverse and focus on other multiversal villains, not seeing Kang again until Secret Wars. So Kang is basically finally introduced as the big bad multiversal villain that he is. The multiverse kind of gets blown up and everything starts to fall apart, and that's where the Avengers get super involved with the multiverse storyline. But Kang goes away, and perhaps he sends other villains at the Avengers, at the Fantastic Four, at X-Men and other universes, until they finally all come together again in Avengers Secret Wars to take on Kang. This is more than likely going to happen, but like I said, both can still happen. I just think that there is going to be a moment in Avengers 5 where everything kind of hits the fan, and then the Avengers and all the heroes realize what is happening and the multiverse is in jeopardy. Now, as far as Doom is concerned, this part is really, really exciting. Somebody asked Alex P if they were going to be replacing Kang with Doom. This is something that was mentioned a long time ago, and it was mentioned by some pretty big trades like The Hollywood Reporter. And other big trades reported on this too. You all might remember when Marvel Studios did their retreat, and it wasn't a good retreat. It was the first bad one they had in a really long time. Well, according to multiple different outlets, Marvel Studios was considering all of their options when they were on that retreat, and one of those was replacing Kang with Doom. That was a very real thing that they were discussing. Well, apparently the plan is not to replace him with him, but to bring him in and build him up in an extremely big way. In response to the question, is Doom going to replace Kang, Alex Perez said this: I really don't think Doom will be the main villain in this saga, given the little time we have to build him up. It would be a disservice to us, to the character, and quite frankly, a waste. Doom deserves better than one movie to set him up in a post-credit scene and then big bad for 2 movies and then be done with him. Pause there for just a second to say that I entirely agree. This is why I don't think Doom should be the big bad of the saga. But continuing, he says, plus, I've heard they're treating Doom similar to how they've handled Loki in the Infinity Saga. This right here, this is an excellent idea. I love it for many different reasons. Just think of the Fantastic Four as Thor and Doom as Loki. So Doom can be an antagonist in the Fantastic Four films. With each film, he kind of rides that line between hero and ally of the Fantastic Four and villain. And as time goes on, that line is not written just with the Fantastic Four, but with all of the heroes in general in the MCU. And I love that we could kind of build him up and see his story. We don't know the origin so far of him, but I'd love to see him learn his sorcery. I'd love to see him start clashing heads with other characters in the MCU. I would love to see him seek out vibranium from Wakanda, something that we thought we were going to get in Wakanda Forever but didn't. But I'd basically love to see him clash with everybody until ultimately he does come to power. He becomes so powerful for whatever reason, whether that's his sorcery combined with him getting his hands on vibranium. Maybe after Secret Wars he still does have some Kang technology. Whatever the reason being, I want him to be built up in a really good way, but I also want him to be built up where he's not a true villain. He is good sometimes, because a big part of Loki's story arc is his redemption. At the end, he wasn't bad. And throughout his entire story, he never was truly bad. Yeah, he screwed Thor over a lot, and he screwed his dad over, and his mom. But ultimately, the main Loki we saw in the MCU before Avengers Infinity War, and up to it, ended in a really good way, with the exception that he died. But he ended as a good person, and then the new Loki that we got in Loki Season 1 throughout now is an incredibly good person. I want that for Doom. I want Doom to be a crazy, awesome villain who does get his own Avengers film, just like Loki did in the first Avengers film, but also continues to pop up in other films as well as an antagonist slash maybe anti-hero, not a full villain, to where the Avengers go, well, I don't know if we can trust him. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. The same thing with the Fantastic Four and the X-Men, because oftentimes in the comics, the heroes and the villains do kind of have to work together for the sake of the greater good. For example, Dr. Doom might kind of be set up as somewhat of a villain in the Multiverse Saga, but I'm sure he'll work with all of the heroes to defeat Kang, because if he doesn't, then the whole entire multiverse gets destroyed, and him with it. But I think overall, after the Multiverse Saga is done, this is a great way to build up Doom. He's kind of good, he's kind of bad, he is power hungry, and he is very powerful, and when he gets gets what he wants, he might try to take everything. That's when the Avengers and the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, they have to all work together to take him down. That's what I'm here for. I hope he is the new big bad of the next saga. Or if he's not, I hope at the very end, he actually decides to help everybody take down the big bad and gets a big redemption, just like Loki did. But go ahead and let me know your thoughts about all of this in the comments down below. Do you like this? Do you not like this? Let us know. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you can stay up to date on the MCU. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We'll link those down below. We'll also put the giveaway info in the pinned comment as well. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.